Alrighty, we should be recording. And how's your day been so far, Tim?
Good, Sundays, it was nasty here. I'm in Bellbrook, which is close to Dayton, Ohio,
Yeah.
and it's that time of year where either you go outside or you're staying in your PJs. We went out, my wife and son and I, we went out a little bit this morning to get breakfast, and then the rest of the day inside, put up the Christmas tree, and watch some Christmas movies, and we're ready for that time of year.
Yeah, I love that. They recently celebrated birthdays, didn't they?
Yeah, November is birthday month in the Cox household. My birthday was on November 2nd. My son Spencer, his birthday was on the 17th, and my wife just celebrated on the 21st. So big month for us
Mm.
here. And, yeah.
Yeah, that makes it easier too, like super easy.
Yeah, there's no way that you could possibly forget birthdays. Yeah, when they're all in the excuse me, the same month. Yeah, but it's nice. It worked out originally. My son originally, I think he was originally due December 3rd or 4th, and he came early. So it's nice that we all are able to share and celebrate that month together.
Yeah, I've never heard of anything like that. That's definitely unique. Yeah, good man. So I wanted to
Yeah.
dive straight in, and have you give a brief synopsis of who you are to the people who may not know you, and talk about how you began
Sure.
acting.
Well, me, how well, one, my name is Timothy J. Cox, but Tim to my friends. And I am a stage and film actor, and I've been doing it for, oh God, over more than half my life. And, I've done a little bit of everything. I started out working in the theater, working where I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, and in Pennsylvania, and went to college here in Ohio. So I did some theater at Marietta College, and then I was in New York for almost 20 years and did theater and films there. But when I graduated from college, my aspiration was that I wanted to be a good supporting actor in the theater, and
It's a good
didn't
goal.
yeah, and and I was always a fan of the movies. Didn't think about movies. I'm sure that that had a lot to do with confidence. I mean, when you're growing up in your 20s and being an actor, it's a time when you're battling that old thing of self confidence, and not only are you good enough, but the way you look, and I mean, I went through a period in my 20s where, I thought about changing my name. I didn't like my name, and I didn't, all of these kinds of things. And then something extraordinary happens is that, the more you work, your self confidence grows, and you really kind of become happy with who you are, because you bring your own uniqueness to every kind of role, and that trickled over into life as well. So I think I always say the work that everything that this work is about, being in this business, it's really kind of saved my life and set my life free. So yeah, and yeah, I mean, again, getting started in the theater, I was in eighth grade, and as an excuse to get out of math class, I don't know any school that does this, but I actually had I auditioned for the school play during the school day, and it was during math class, and I would have done anything to get out of math class. So I went to the audition with no desire or aspiration to be an actor, and went in, auditioned, and I got cast in the lead role. It was a musical version of the O. Henry story, The Gift of the Magi, called Rags to Riches. And yeah, like the first time I heard that laughter, that live reaction from an audience, it was extraordinary, and it still is. I mean, it's still that electric feeling, like, because it's opening night every night, like it's a different audience, a different show. It's people are going to react differently, especially if you're doing a comedy or something like that. Like, people laugh at
Right.
different kinds of things. But and then that, and I I worked in high school and in college, and I would say I moved to New York in February of 2001, and I would say mostly for the first, I would say almost 9, 10 years that I was there in New York, I did almost exclusively theater with an occasional film, like, because of course in New York, you have so many wonderful opportunities if you do want to do film.
Right.
There are student films that you could work with at NYU or New York Film Academy, School of Visual Arts, Hunter College. Um, but I wasn't really, I was kind of antsy, like, on a film set because, the sitting around and the waiting and all of that. It took me a long time to realize that movies are not just made with actors. Movies are made with so many, you have editors and costume designers and art directors and writers and all of that. And, looking back on those early years, I was like, oh God, that must have been a pain in the ass to work with. What, not that I was ever like, difficult. I kind of kept it, inside, but like my feeling in those days was like, forget about all that stuff. Let's get to the acting. But really, learning about lighting and sound and how hard, like timing of all of that and how all of those things come together to make a movie. Um, and when I got that appreciation and the respect for everybody on a film set, in around 2010, I almost exclusively started doing film, and that's pretty much what I've been doing ever since. Like the occasional uh, play here and there, which I miss doing the theater. I did a play about 2 years ago, and
Hmm.
it was great to be back on a stage. But film is my respect and admiration for the process and all of the things that everybody who makes any kind of creative contribution to a film or a web series or a commercial or anything. It's it's amazing just like what how hard it is to bring all of that to life.
Yeah. I mean, especially on the acting side, you guys, for lack of a better term, just get to see everything that goes on behind the scenes, but everybody who's watching the film only sees you. So it's like you guys have to kind of bring together everything that goes on behind the scenes that cultivates exactly what you're doing. It's super rough, like not an easy thing to
Yeah,
accomplish.
but you know what, like I love, like I just worked on a film last weekend with some students here at Wright University, at Wright State. And again, like you watch like how, if the lighting is not right, then you got to move the camera like a little bit this way, or I mean, just all of those kinds of things. It's very scientific,
Yeah.
because well, one, it's interesting watching, people work as a team on a film set like that. That's really extraordinary. And then like because they want everything, because film is forever. Once it's on camera, it's forever. And so, you want it to look good. You want, you know, we've all watched movies where we notice little things like, or like there's the old Game of Thrones thing where they would notice the Starbucks cup on during the episode, which, I mean, it really is, it's a science, like, making a film, and a lot of people come together, and it's that wonderful word I learned working in the theater, ensemble. It really is an ensemble, not only just actors, but the writer and the director and the producers and all of the members of the crew, everybody coming together with one common goal, just to tell this particular story, whatever it may be, to tell it in the best possible way through, visuals and just good storytelling. And that's why I still do it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I wanted to touch on how to kind of still skill stack as an actor. Yeah, obviously you have the different types of methods of acting, but there's a lot of groundwork and kind of laying and planting of seeds that you got to do before you see things flourish. Can you touch on like the amount of networking it takes to sustain a career as an actor, the amount of skill you actually have to do, training?
Well, training, I mean, definitely for anyone starting out, like, study, read every
Mm,
book, read every play that you can get your hands on, watch every movie, go to museums, listen to all types of music, even, music
mm,
that, you may not necessarily like, but it like, um, you have to explore the world.
mm,
You have to live. I think to be a good actor or a good artist is that you really have to have a handle on the world. You have to go out there and live, travel, see the world, read the newspaper, have opinions on things that are going on in the world. Research, do your homework. All of those kinds of things, you will see a casting that comes along and say, hey, that there's a character, if you're going to play an artist, and if you've gone to, there's a Monet exhibit, I believe, here in Dayton, and there's something from that, like, well, that you could take in with you. Like, that's the homework. Every day you're doing homework. Your head is like a computer. You're just compiling information, and then you
right.
always put it in the treasure chest. And it's like, I'm going to use that someday. Um, and with as far as training, like, I would say take classes. As far as the methods of acting, when I was at school at Marietta College, there was really not. I had a wonderful teacher named Steve Rader. There was really not one method that he subscribed to. He showed us the Meisner technique, Stella Adler, all of those kinds of things. He always said, I want to show you the world, because you have to find the method, technique, process, whatever you want to call it, that works best for you. But
Mm,
a director I worked with, he said something really interesting to me. He said about actors' processes. He said, as the director, I don't care what your method is. All I want is that, and I think all any director wants is that when you're here, when you're on set, you hit your marks, you say your lines, and you get from point A to point B. And, I will help, a good director will help you along the way.
right,
Um, but you have to come in. He says, I love actors that come in and I can see that they've done some work already on the character. Like, there are, I've been on set with actors that they come to set and they don't even memorize, they don't have their lines memorized, which it's like they learn, they do it, they learn it as we rehearse, if you do
right,
rehearse. Whereas film, you don't, sometimes you don't have the luxury of rehearsal, or they'll get it in the moment. Some actors can do that. I don't think Robert Duvall likes to rehearse, or he, but and of course he's been doing this for what, 60 years. So me, I like to be prepared, because for me, the more prepared I am, the more open and available I am. Whereas if
right.
you and I are doing a scene and we're doing a little bit of the scripted dialogue, and something happens in the scene where, like, what Peter Sellers used to call happy accidents, and you are, or one of us goes up on a line, or something happens, like something falls over, like, if you and I are doing a scene and we're sitting at a table and something falls over, well, we have to react to that because that's life. If something within that, you know if you're prepared in the scene, if you and I are prepared, like, dialogue wise, we can deal when things like that happen, and things that happen in the moment that are honest and true, and within the confines of the intention of what the writer wants and what the director wants. That's the best for me. I mean, when you're, I call it, you know 80% preparation and about 20% spontaneity, of things that
Mm,
happen in the moment. And if you're working, and if you have an instinct to do something, that you think might work, a little thing that'll add a little bit of color, um, try it. I mean, the worst thing that they could say is, take two, or they'll cut it out of the movie. But like, you got to be relaxed. Relaxation. Also, another thing with me being like always wanting to be prepared. The more prepared I am, the more relaxed I am. You know, years ago when I was in college, I used to get very, very nervous. Like, and my shoulders would lock up like this. And I think that was a part of like the battling of self-confidence. I'm out on stage and my shoulders are locked like this. Am I good enough? Oh God, am I a fraud? But when I
Right.
started to like not care, or I used to call it a glorious air of indifference. You go out and you do it, and if they like it, fine. If they don't, there's nothing I can do about it. I can only control what I bring, into the scene, or into the play or the movie or what have you. And it gave me an incredible relaxation, because you go out and you be as prepared, and you don't I don't really think about, I'm interacting with the other actor. I'm not thinking about the next line. I'm not thinking about uh anything in my, life or whatever. I mean, uh you're just you want to be honest in the moment. That's the best kind. And listening is a lot of what really good acting is. I mean, you watch, one of my idols was Spencer Tracy. He was, I think, one of the greatest film actors ever. And I never saw Spencer Tracy or Gene Hackman give a bad performance, because they were always fantastic listeners. You watch him. Jack Lemmon, another one, like, a great reactor. I mean, like, and that's what a lot of like listening and reacting, more behaving. I think the older I get and the more I do this, the more I think acting is more about how does this character or this person behave in a scene, like,
That
and
makes
so
sense.
that's kind of the thing, that I try to be about, like, how does this character behave. You want, and when you do that, you want to create characters that are people like we see on the street every day. You want to play them honestly. I mean, and sometimes, like people we meet every day, sometimes people act unreasonably, sometimes people act outrageously. And I mean, all you got to do is watch the news. We see evidence of that on almost a daily basis now. So I think it depends on the writing, it depends on the character, and the kind of direction that the director sees the film and the specific characters going in.
Nice. I wanted to touch on kind of like how actors and actresses become a vessel for a character. You might write out, or a director might have a particular person in mind, but once we have that cast set, that person becomes that character. Whether they become iconic or not isn't up to them, but they are the driving force of what that character should be, what they should look like, et cetera, et cetera. And my
Mm.
question to you about that was, how do you not let a character or multiple versions of different characters consume you as Tim?
Well, that's a really important. I think the easiest way to describe that, there's a story. Jack Lemmon did a movie in the early '70s called Save the Tiger, and he played a middle-aged man who, his business is really struggling, and he's thinking that he's going to have to commit a crime so he can get money to keep his business going. And
Right.
and while all of this is going on, he's having flashbacks of friends that died in the Korean War.
Hmm.
And there's a scene in the movie where he's standing up in like he works at like runs a fashion business, and he's standing up and he's trying to make $250,000 to keep his business going. And while in the audience, he starts seeing dead soldiers, his friends in the audience, and he starts breaking down. Well, Jack Lemmon was telling a story of, he was driving to set one day, and he had to pull the car over because he started breaking down. And he said it was the first time that a character ever took over, which you never want, because you always want to be in, the actor always needs to be in control of
Okay.
the character. If you're doing a scene where you're supposed to play, or if I'm rather doing a scene where I'm supposed to play an alcoholic or a drug addict or something like that, I've gone out to bars plenty of times, and like, I know what it's like to be closing a bar at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you know you're slurring your words and things like that. You have what they would call a sense memory. That where you don't have to go out and actually get drunk to play the scene. I've worked with actors
Right.
that have done that, and it's never good, because if you're under those lights and working for 14-hour days and you're hammered, you're not going to make it through the day. So what you
Right.
have to do, that's where you fall back on your training. If you're playing this scene, okay, well, I often have to think, um the character has to be in the actor has to be in control of the movements. All right, well, how is the character dressed, like, and all things like that. Most people, when they drink, what do they try to do? They try to always act as if they're sober. So they do
Mhm.
everything in their power to try to give the appearance of sobriety. It's the same thing kind of when if I'm an actor playing that part, it's an actor playing drunk, trying to play think sober, so that and but it's hard to do. But that's
Yeah.
where your training falls in. That's where training, good writing, good director. And you also have this little voice. I always have this little voice in my head where sometimes it says, too much, Tim, too much, you're pushing too much. I think we have that kind of, it's like having a director or an editor in your head that, like, you do kind of self edit as you go, because you don't want it to be over the top. You don't want it to be you want it to be honest and true. Um and like, whenever I've played drunk scenes, I always think, okay, well, I mean, there are times when you get very, very loud, but most of the time I get very soft like this. You just, and there are things that you could do with your voice. There are things that you could do with your body. You don't have to, you know, go out and get drunk. I mean, and do that. One, that's dangerous. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. Like, you got to take care of your body, because your body's the instrument. But like, when you play a character, you have to. One of the things that I always do, I always look at, how does the character dress? What do they like? What do they wear? If there was a movie I did years ago called Socks and Cakes, where I played this kind of embittered, slightly alcoholic literature professor. And at the time, I figured I'd put like a little bit of, whiten my hair to gray a little bit, glasses, like a little bit of stubble. Like, I wanted this guy to give the appearance that he's doing okay, but to anyone who really knew him, they would know this guy's in a little bit of trouble. And like, and it's sometimes it's a simple thing. It's a simple thing, like, that's why props are always so important. It's why costumes are so important. Sometimes it could be a simple thing as a hat, or Peter Falk said, get yourself a good jacket. If you get a good jacket, like, I mean, guy, Columbo, I mean, like, all of those kinds of things I love, coming from the theater. All of those things add to creating the character. Props, like, does he smoke? Does he wear glasses? Does he? I work a lot with glasses. Like, I have a whole box full of old pairs of glasses that I try to work into just about every project I do. Yeah, and there were times that, like, sometimes I would write like a biography for the character.
Yeah.
Um, I actually don't like to do that now. I kind of, because there are things you discover about the character while you're doing it, while you're in rehearsal.
Mm,
Thing, you know, especially if you're doing a play. If you're doing a play, God, there are things I've been in, like, you know, performances, or like, oh God, that's what the character, that's who that character is. And it's like, you know, that's the beauty of doing the theater and working in theater, is that you're still discovering. Whereas film, you know, it does happen as well, uh, and it's fun. It's investigative work. It's kind of like, you know, you got to put on your, but you got to do the work. You got to do your homework. You can't. When I get cast in something, it kind of becomes like you become obsessed with the character, because you want to make it honest. You want to make it different. You want to make it unique, especially if it's something that, you know, like if you're playing Hamlet, you want to play Hamlet, you want to make it your Hamlet. You don't want to make
right.
it Kevin Kline's Hamlet or Richard Burton's Hamlet or Judi Dench's Hamlet. You want to make it your Hamlet. And which is the beautiful thing about Shakespeare and about that specific part and that specific text, is that Hamlet can be anything. He could be tall, he could be short, he could be fat, he could be a woman. Um, I want more women playing that part. I mean, and I think now, in the time that we're in, with you know, an understanding of about, you know, gender identity, I think now is the perfect time to do productions of Hamlet with a woman playing the part, or the Scottish play, or Othello. I mean, have at it. You know, and same thing with like productions of Anton Chekhov or Miss Julie, or, you know, anything like that. So I think the possibilities are endless, because with these characters, and same thing in movies, you discover things about things that could scare you about, you know, oh wow, I have a lot more in common with this character than I thought. Audience members think the same way. So yeah, that's my long-winded answer on my process for, like, you know, building a character together. And it changes, like, with
Yeah.
every character. If there's a character that kind of scares me, that's kind of fun, because that's, and then, you know, you start doing, like, you know, research on, like, like, I did a movie about 10 years ago called Simple Mind, where I played a murderer. And I'm always fascinated by real crime documentaries, and I watched something on Ted Bundy. And all of these, they're like little things that, like, oh, like, you know, when you're playing that, like, things that he did, like, that audiences, some of them may not notice, but, like, you know, they were fun kinds of things to play around with when you're working, because
Yeah.
you got to keep it interesting.
Yeah. Even, you know, listening to my dad and my brothers talk about their favorite acting or even voice acting, like they always care about the subtleties more than like the overall performance. They're like, did you see when he inflected his voice here or made that joke like this? I thought that was hilarious. So you're right on the nose with everything. Can you touch on like what it takes for you to become a part of a film? I know probably when you were first starting out, it was more like, hey, I want to take on this role or to get it under my portfolio. But now you're definitely more self aware and more distinguished. So, how do you pick a role as Tim now versus Tim back when he was first acting?
It's I still love the process of auditioning, but I tell you, there is nothing
Nice.
better when somebody contacts you and says, "Hey, there's a role that I wrote with you in mind." That's the greatest compliment. And also, I always tend to get a little nervous, because, like, oh, I better not, like, that's an incredible responsibility when
Pressure.
someone
Yeah.
reaches out to you and says, I want you to play this part. I know you can do it. It might be different than something that you've done before, but I know you can do it. When I get that, that's kind of like, they used to, like, Michael Jordan, you know, they used to talk about, like, they would say, if somebody said Michael Jordan couldn't do anything, that would be like trigger, the trigger would go off, and, like,
Mhm.
all right, bring it on. Like, the more
Right.
challenges, the better. And it's like, and God forbid, if you were Garden Michael and you made a comment to him, he would make you pay. But yeah, I love that. It's the challenges of that. And but no, I still love auditioning because auditioning, and there's a lot of really great. Michael Keaton has a great quote, and it's one that like, and I think I saw it like a year or two ago, where he looks at an audition as not going in looking for a job. He's going to work. He's going to work. He
Mm,
said, all right, for this 90 seconds or 2 minutes, I'm going to go to work. If that's all I do today as an actor, that 90 seconds or that 2 minutes, I get to do what I love. And if
right.
you get, you get the part, great. But I mean, uh, and if you don't, that's fine too. Because again, all you can do as the actor or the artist is do your do your job, is do your best. Don't go in there like, oh God, I need a job. I need a job. We all need jobs. And a lot of casting directors and producers I know would love to hire every actor that comes in the door. But there are so many factors that in many ways have nothing to do with your talent or lack of it or what have you. Just and I've been on the other side of that table, and I've seen amazing actors come in, and it's like, oh well, and if it's a husband and wife scene and it's a drama, that's like, well, she's 5'11" and he's 5'7", and like, I mean, well, can we put him on apple boxes? And I said, well, we would need a lot of apple boxes. I've had that happen to me a lot.
That's
I'm
crazy.
5'6". I'm 5'6", and like, I, I went in, oh God, this is like 10, 12 years ago. I went into an audition for a drama of a husband and wife scene, and they're having like, it was a scene from Harold Pinter's play Betrayal. And I look across at me, and the actress, I swear, was 6'2". And I said, there's no way I'm going to get this
Mm,
part. But I figured, you do your best because the person sitting in the audience, you never know, not this job, but the next job. And the guy, and like a year or two after, the guy remembered me. And I said, I'm sorry we paired you up with her. And I said, well, it felt like we set you up to fail. And I said, are you kidding? That was the most relaxed audition I'd ever been to. Because it's like, there's no way, in a Harold Pinter drama, a 6'2", you know, female over a 5'6". I mean, if it were a comedy, definitely, but not
right.
in that. So, but you keep going. I mean, that's the thing, and you keep going, you keep evolving as an actor. I think the more you do it, I mean, I look at this as I'm still a student. Every time I go to set or I go to whatever, I'm going to class. It's the best class. It's the best education. The education of just doing it. The movie that I just finished, which was a movie called Road to Mimosaville, the lead actor in the film was a freshman at Wright State, and I could tell he was a fantastic actor, but I could tell why he was a good actor because he was trained in the theater. He did his homework before. He didn't wait until he got to set. He thought about the character. He had ideas. He was very physical. And then, at that time he was relaxed. And I said, this guy's going to be a pro. And you can tell that, like, that they train and they take their training seriously, and like but there's a looseness about that was about him that it was really a pleasure to watch and work with. And it was like, good for you.
I wanted to piggyback off of what you were saying about finding the nuance and really diving deep into characters. Um, as you probably know, they're doing a lot with artificial intelligence in general, whether that's encoding people's voices or taking people's faces and putting them in movies and commercials and things of that nature. Um, what do you have to say about like us as humans trying to program robots to act better than us? You
Well,
know?
I think that whole thing's been was one of the basis of the recent SAG after strike.
Yeah.
I think it's an absolutely the idea that you and I could go into a movie and see a movie or a TV show or a play, because if that it's not done by human actors. Um, AI has a lot of great things going for it, but an audience going in to see a play or a film cannot connect to an AI performance. They need a flesh and blood, you know, human performance that they connect to. I mean, if I mean, it's kind of like when in the inception of motion pictures, when people would go see movies like Charlie Chaplin or what have you, even when he was being incredibly funny, audiences connected to the pathos that he brought. It's the same thing when movies started, the soundies started happening. If people went and saw John Wayne, people connected to that, wanting to be a tough guy, or wanting to be Errol Flynn, or wanting to be Betty Davis. um I think it really takes away the human connectivity element, that connecting element. One of the things that Bryan Cranston, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but they're going to actually have to put into contracts now, SAG contracts, that actors have to be played by human beings. It's extraordinary that they have to do that. But yeah, I mean, I don't. I think even with the strike being over, I don't think it's a discussion that is over with. But I don't know. I don't know an actor that is on board with that idea.
I think it's a good idea if you're just trying to make the best movie the fastest you can. But you do got to factor in that there's a lot of freaking jobs that are being taken away by what's going on. And people don't want to admit that, yes, that there's a lot of help, but there's also a lot of greed that comes with that. Um, and a lot of animosity that's going to come with actors or budding actors and even independent filmmaking industry or entities. Um, just because it's simply easier to use or encode somebody's voice and make it look or sound something completely different. But I agree with you. There should be a fair amount of usage for humans and what we've been able to do and cultivate over the last however many thousands of years with even theater and film now. Um, I just thought it was interesting to hear that from you, from somebody who's acting, because a lot of production companies will act like an AI is just as good or even better at acting than a human can be, and that's just not the case. Like,
It really isn't. I mean, can an AI do what Paul Giamatti is doing in The Holdovers? No. Can an AI, do what James Cagney and Katharine Hepburn and all of them were able to? It's like, yeah, I think it's a form of laziness. Like, people don't want to, they just figure, well, we're just going to cut the human element out of it, and we're just going to put it all in a computer. But computer doesn't have, it doesn't have blood pumping in their veins. I mean, and the thing about, you know, we know anything about, computers and all of that, you know, they're not perfect. Um, I mean, let's say, for example, if we get to a time where we go to live theater, we go to see a play, we go to see a production of Hamlet, and they just have a bunch of screens on stage and just artificial performances, who's going to pay 125 or $200 or whatever it costs to go to the theater all these days to watch that? Or same thing with
nobody.
movies. I mean, people are having problems getting people to go to the movies as it is. And so I think, and a lot of the discussions that I have had with people, it's a no brainer. Like, actors have to be human. Actors have to be, because if I'm watching a movie and it's just I can't connect to that, and it's kind of, and you just like turn it off, go on to the next, like, see what else. I mean,
Right.
yeah, I just it was interesting, like seeing that that was such a huge part of the strike, and the fact that, I mean, I mean, I know, I mean, Brian Cox, I mean, was just dumbfounded by the idea, and I am as well, that
Yeah.
people are even considering, AI for film and for TV and all of that.
It has a lot of benefits on the visual effects side of things. Like, let's say you're working with the students from Wright State, and they want to make a sci-fi film, but just simply don't have the budget to acquire those resources. They can use something or some sort of software to be able to make some fraction of a sci-fi movie, and that's great. But they're not completely abandoning the human actor or actress, which is what you're getting at, and which is what I'm saying as well.
Well, and the thing is, if in using that example, if they do, or if it's, Hollywood, if they did do that and they used an AI of an actor, then what's the question of, like, compensating them for that? If I mean, that's a big thing too. It's like, if there's discussion, if like, if an actor did a live action performance and a producer wanted to take their image without, they've already paid the actor for this one thing, take their image, put it in an AI in another film, well, the other actor would be, you know, it would be appropriate that they be compensated for that. But
Right.
probably the best thing, it's like, just have an actor do it. So yeah, it's amazing. Like, and between that, and then I know that the discussion of, like, writers not getting paid enough. You have to pay the writers. If the we don't have, I hate the word content. But like, we do not have movies and TV shows and theater and commercials and all of that without the writers. You give them, I mean, I guarantee you, any actor who's making $25 million a movie would gladly give a percentage of the money that they make to ensure that the writer, because without a script, you don't have anything. You don't have a movie. You don't have, I mean, all the special effects in the world are not going to save your movie if you don't have a good script.
Right. How do you feel about, even using Chat GPT and AI to write scripts? Um, People are using it as a thinking partner, but I want to hear your opinion about movies specifically.
Yeah, I'm not really like, I think you could use it as a guide, I think,
Right.
but if I think you can't, you have to go back and do it the old fashioned way. I think if you have that as like maybe a starting spot, and then you go back and you edit and you go in, but I mean, scripts, I mean, like, I mean, Neil Simon, when he wrote his plays, he would still write his plays on legal pads. I mean, that's like, when I think of a writer, like a playwright or a screenwriter, that's what I think of. Or like, you're in a room with a typewriter, or if you're writing them down. I mean, like, again, I think, computers and all of that, they have their place, but again, the writing process is so personal. As someone who has written scripts, stories, it's so personal that you want it's got to come, it always comes from, it's got to come from inside the heart. That's where blood's pumping. And
Right.
yeah, I don't know if, like, all of these things are being suggested or wanting to be put in place because they think they're going to save money. AI, it's not, it would not be cheap. I mean, it's kind of
Yeah.
like, when all of the de-aging process and all of that cost, when that first came out, it cost an incredible amount of money, and it's ballooning budgets. And AI, I would imagine, would be similar to that. I'm not real sure on, like, cost and all of that kind
Yeah.
of thing. But I would imagine
So
it would be expensive.
it's expensive to a certain degree as far as like computational power,
Mhm.
if that's making sense. As far as like how to use it and how expensive it can get, it simply depends on if you want to make a free account with some of these softwares or not. Um,
Yeah.
which is the great part, but it's the scary part because let's say a Disney or even like a Monkey Paw Productions or something like that. Hey, it's just a lot easier for us to take, you know, pictures or frames of certain movies and put it into an AI and generate a completely new scene from it. Um,
Mm.
from a business standpoint, that makes all the sense in the world. But from a connectivity, emotional, you know, person to person, human standpoint, it doesn't make sense. You're completely cutting out the process of why people get into film, get into acting in the first place, which is to connect, like whether that's with
Well, and
themselves
that's
or
you
with
said it right
anyone else.
there, the
Yeah.
process. The
Mhm.
process. That's why, of the making. It's something that you made. Um, you know, yeah, it's and the process, it's part of the fun. It's part of the magic. It's part of why we do it. I mean, like my thing is now, like I love as much as I'm very proud of the finished product of work that I've done, the doing of it. That's the thing. It's like, it cuts out like being on the set. Like, if I watch a certain scene from a movie, I remember, oh God, we did that at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I remember, and so was really, really funny. Or I remember this hairstylist was not in a good mood and one of the other actors did something to make him, like those kinds of things. Like you remember like the day or the days, the making of it, like the process. That and I think if you cut that out, I think that's an integral part of the artistic process, because the process is where the creativity comes,
Right.
I think.
Right. That's a great answer. One thing that I've been particularly looking at for, you know, my production company and films that I want to make in the future is um making everything decentralized. And when I say that, meaning like verifying whether that's donations, payments for the movie or for even specific actors and actresses on the blockchain. Are you
Mhm.
familiar with anything cryptocurrency related or blockchain related?
I'm not. No, it's something that I'm just not familiar with. No.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So pretty much if you've heard of Bitcoin, I'm pretty sure you have, like what makes this stuff so intriguing to me is the fact that I can receive a payment from Aaron Rodgers over a piece of software that's making the transaction. Now that sounds
Mhm.
pretty simple, but when you're putting it something through like a Bitcoin, you're now kind of gamifying and decentralizing how transactions are made, how commerce is done. And I think a lot of that can be done in the film industry and break down a lot of payment barriers that SAG after was striking for. Um,
Mhm.
so put it this way, like let's say we make a movie, it takes $5,000 to make. That's what it took to pay everybody and to shoot it, put it out. Now instead of, you know, now going through the regular typical film funding process of like, hey, let's get this or let's sell this movie to distribute or even possibly get remade. Now we can sell this movie directly to the consumer by putting it on our own website, putting it on, i.e., a blockchain that verifies every purchase. That way, people get a cut, actors, actresses, even staff members get a cut of what's made from that transaction. So it's 70, let's say it's $70 on a transaction, you would get maybe five people taking a 2-3% cut of that. Now do
Mhm.
$70 payments times 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, however many people buy the movie. Now you're
Mhm.
talking bringing the power back to the people and the artists who made you connect with the movie in the first place. Is that ringing a bell, making sense at all?
It is, yeah. I mean, I think it's something that, like, producers and business managers and all of that, like, that's something that I don't have any experience with, but it'd be interesting. I mean, things are always changing in this industry. I mean, when digital the way movies are made. Like we went away from digital and away from traditional film. Um, it changed, and of course, now we're in the discussion of how people watch movies. People, filmmakers who do not want people watching their films on their phones or iPads. Like they want to have the, you know, making movies that for big screens, and I get that, and I appreciate it, and I think if you have a family of four, and there's all everybody, oh, there's so many considerations of why, if people prefer to watch a movie in their home or on their phone or what have you. Um, but yeah, I mean, like, it's interesting what you say. I mean, like, my thing is, I would be curious to see, how unions would react to that. Because I don't know if that's something that would happen overnight. I mean, that's something that would just be a lot of discussion because
Right.
producers and the unions and business managers and agents and all of that um, are going to have different opinions and perspectives on how that may or may not benefit them. So
Mhm.
but it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how it develops over the rest of the decade. Because AI and everything, it's completely changed how people are looking at film. So it's going to trickle down into the payment wall eventually.
Mhm.
Good answer, man. What I wanted to talk about next was what's getting Tim excited for 2024 and beyond. I know you just finished a project, Road to Mimosaville, you said it was.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us
Hmm.
about some of those projects you've been involved in, what you've been writing, what you've been acting in?
Sure. Let's see. In the end of I guess a couple of months ago, I started hooking up with with a director, writer, and a producer named Thomas Angeletti.
Hmm.
And I think you because Theo White, right?
Yep. Went to high school
Yeah,
with him.
yeah. So Tom's worked with Theo, and I'm actually writing a script for Theo and I to act in. I swear to God, Theo, I'm working on it. That it was originally going to be a short that I think is now morphing into a feature, and it's a script called a ravenous beast, which is which was it's a line of it's what I think Pope Francis said when asked about what he thought of priests who committed inappropriate acts against children in the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And the film is going to be set in this small fictional town in the middle of nowhere, Ohio. And Theo is going to play a reporter who, he's looking for a good story, who learns that in this small town where everybody kind of knows everyone, everyone's very close knit, that they find out that one of their own, a local priest, has been arrested for inappropriate, you know, touching of minors, and
Right.
that uh, the priest wants to have a conversation with Theo's character to tell his side of the story, and it's kind of like it's kind of one of those scripts that it's one of those things that could tear a small town like this apart because
Hmm.
this priest character is someone that he's been invited into homes and into their lives, not only religiously but personally, and so it's kind of a crisis for all of the characters, and I like that. I like that, and so I'm working on that, and then Tom and I think Tom's going to be a part of that. But Tom and I first worked on a script that I wrote called After, which was a two character piece about a police detective whose son, also a police officer, is killed in the line of duty. And the film takes place on the day of his son's funeral after his son's been buried. And he comes to his home and he's with his daughter played by a wonderful actress named Beth Metcalf. And the mother is deceased a few years before, and the father and the daughter, they have a they're distant towards one another. The thing that I had said is that the father, he was very close to the son, and he was one of those fathers that came from that generation of he doesn't know what to do with a girl, and so he encounters this information, some information that has information about the person who may have killed his son, and it's
Right.
this kind of it's kind of a it's like a confessional, and
Mm.
he has this battle with himself if whether or not he is going to go and kill this person himself. And so it was heavy material, but it was surprising. It was fun to do because again, it's a part that I wrote it, but when I wrote it and when Tom gave the go ahead and said, let's make it, I was like, oh God, like what have I gotten into now? Like I wrote it, now I got to play it. And it was a wonderful challenge. And I loved working with Tom, who's a fantastic director, and the crew that he has. He's got Maya Ahmed, who is a wonderful, probably one of the best assistant directors that I've ever worked with. And he's got Robert Morris and Alex Johnson, who are wonderful sound people and incredible actors as well. And we collaborated again on another piece called Hard Truths, which is kind of it's about takes a look at the modeling industry and how models are, you know, how models are treated. I play a an agent who he's trying to book his client with a major clothing brand, but the clothing brand has come back and said, we'll work with her, but she needs to make drastic changes, which he knows what those means. Like they want her to, lose weight and, do this and do that. And so he has to go in and tell this model, they want you, but you need to do ABC, and he knows that she's not going to react well to it, and so it's kind of this battle, internal battle, because he knows that he has to. It's fear. He loves this person, played wonderfully by Tom's girlfriend Paige Hoover, who herself is a model, and a lot of the experiences, things that her character Hope talks about, are things that she's actually experienced as a model. So it's very much kind of autobiographical, which
Yeah.
I was very happy to. I mean, it had to have been. I admire Paige for sharing that information because I just saw a cut of the film yesterday, and it should be coming out real soon, and it's going to be really fantastic. And it's and Maya Ahmed directed that, and Tom was behind the camera on that one. Um, and then yeah, in 2024 we have this wonderful horror film coming out called Friends Forever, which is a just a wonderful homage to 80s slasher films, like all of
Ooh.
like teens go to an abandoned house that they find out very quick is probably should have gone somewhere else. And it is just blood and guts, and I had never done a slasher film, and it was fun, messy, incredibly messy, but fun. So that's going to be coming out very very soon, and then I'll be reuniting with of course Ravenous Beast. That's going to be, I would say that's a year, maybe a little more away, just because we want to do it right. We want to raise money and pay the crew and pay the actors, and then we have two other short films. One film called Sundays with Dad, whereas I work with an amazing actor named George Hildebrand, who he plays my father, and he's a widower who he decides, he's lonely. His wife, mom, recently passed away, and he decides that he wants to hire an escort, not for sexual favors, but for companionship. And so it's it's very funny, I hope, and it's going to be heartwarming. And George and I have already been rehearsing, and we're hoping to do that this spring. And then lastly, there's another script called Hall of Famer, which
Ooh.
stars oh God, I just blanked on her name. Julie Carney. Oh my God, sorry, Julie. And no, amazing Julie Carney. She plays an actress, a former actress, who's kind of, in the middle of nowhere, and she's informed by her attorney that she is about to be inducted into the Adult Film Hall of Fame, because it turned out that 20 odd years before, she had worked in the adult film industry. And so, and all of the kind of the humor that comes from that, just and I play her husband, her very supportive husband. That'll be We just had a reading for that a few weeks ago, and then the cast is really solid. And Tom's going to direct both of those films, and we hope to do those definitely sometime in 2024. So a lot going on, and I'm very happy to be able to say that we're going to be busy.
Good man. What's some advice that you would give to anybody who's stemming into acting, who's trying to get established, kind of like yourself, and who wants to continue to connect with the audience? I know you were talking about how people in theater connect kind of a little more than film, but for whoever's trying to act in theater or film in general, what advice do you have for them, or encouragement, discouragement, even?
Yeah, just for, like, getting started. Well, the one thing I always ask anyone who wants to be an actor, I said, do you want to be an actor or do you want to be a movie star? Because when you're an
Mm,
actor, you have to know that it's a journey. I mean, every actor, every actor's story is different. Um, you have to, you can't half-ass it.
right,
And there are some people that say, well, I'll give myself 5 years, 10 years. That's crap. There's an old saying, and there was my teacher, Stanley Harrison, who said it takes 20 years for someone to learn about being an actor. Like,
wow,
because in that time, you learn about yourself. Now, some people get lucky and they learn as they go, which is what we all do, as far as like having successes and all of that. But any advice that I would have is have strong people in your corner, have the right people in your corner, have good family, have friends, real friends that are gonna, tell you when you're acting like an ass. And just be good with take a business course, learn about like contracts, how money, all of that. I mean, because you see in the news, actors and artists traditionally are not good with money. They're going out and buying cars, and you have to prepare for a career. And how do you prepare? You have to think about, if you start doing this in your 20s, you have to prepare, what is it going to be like when I'm doing this when I'm 40 or 50 or 60, or am I still going to be doing, do I want to still be doing this? And if the answer is yes, you got to strap in and be ready for, peaks and valleys. That's what
right.
an actor's life is. It's peaks and valleys. um you're going to have hits, you're going to have misses, but my mentality is that the next door is always around the corner, and behind that door you don't know what's there. um Say yes. If you can, say yes at all. I mean, for anyone starting out, if there's a community theater in your area, get involved, run lights, do the box office, build sets, play, small part, work your way up, learn how, you know, actors work. If you have friends that are filmmakers or want to be filmmakers, um, get a camera together and start making movies. It might stink, but the more you do it, you'll learn about this. This the I think it was the Duplass brothers. The more you do it, eventually you'll suck less, and that's like but that's doing it. It's like if you want to be. I just watched a documentary about Larry Bird, who he would be out in Indiana. He would be up at 6 or 7 o'clock every morning, just standing out at his basketball court for 2 hours, practicing free throws, practicing layups, practicing, uh, you know, taking care of his instrument, which was, because, and the thing that he always loved, one of the things about the documentary was that people always underestimated him. That's like if you're an actor and if people underestimate you, if you walk into an audition, people say, well, this guy doesn't look like an actor, or this guy doesn't look like much, and then you get to show them what you're made of. That's the best, because that's the ultimate underdog story right there. I love being the underdog, and I've had people that have kind of done that to me. I mean, sometimes you notice it, sometimes you don't, but it's kind of cool when you do notice it, and then when you prove them wrong, because it's kind of like, like never judge a book, like by its cover.
Right.
Like you got to work. You got to put the work in. You can't, like I said before, if you show up on set and you're not prepared, people are going to know. And I mean, and movies, depending on the kind of movie or scene that you're doing, it could be a long day. And if you don't know your job, it could be even longer. And it's, as far as, and memorizing, learn a way to do it. Learn, like, have a method, have a, whether some people write lines down on index cards, some people, use recordings. I mean, like when I get a script, if it's a play script, I break it into sections and memorize that a section at a time. 45 minutes to an hour a day. Now, if you're in a situation where if you're getting if I have an audition tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning and I get sides for something 6 or 7 or 12 pages at 7 o'clock, you're gonna be doing a line cram, and it's fun, it's scary, it's exciting, but like if you go in and you have it, in a way you've already won, because if and I've said producers have told me, I said, the fact that if they did that tells me that they're hungry. You got to be
Mm.
hungry. You got to be hungry. You got to be, and don't look at, if you don't book a job, don't look at it as a failure. It's failure. It's part of our trade, and it's not even failure. I don't know what word it is, but it's you're gonna hear no. You're gonna have
Right.
doors slammed in your face. You're gonna encounter people that don't want to cast you because you're not their idea of what an actor should be, or what you keep going. You keep going, and and eventually, I mean, I'm 47. I started doing this when I was 14. I don't have all the answers, but I'm enjoying the journey. It's still fun. That's the thing, is keep it fun, keep it light. You'll be much easier to work with if you keep it light and you keep it fun. Because if you're, and I work with actors who, they come on and they're and it affects their work.
Mm.
I was in Rhode Island a couple of years ago, and there was an actor, and he came on, and the character in the movie was supposed to be a guy going through some stuff, and he came in and he was banging his head against the wall, and he was really trying to get to that place where he needed to be, and I respected that. But when the time came to roll the cameras, he had got himself so amped up that he forgot, like he was blowing lines in the scenes, and the director just came up and said, "Relax, it's only a movie. Relax, it's only a movie." And it's like a little thing. It's like, like we go out there sometimes and we think it's life or death if we don't get it, and like it's only a movie, like or it's only a take. You get to do it again. I mean, I mean, you got to have fun with it, even if you're playing. Sissy Spacek told a great story about Jack Lemmon. She said when they were doing the movie Missing, which was a really heavy drama, she said Jack Lemmon is the only person that could be telling you a really funny story. They would call action, go in and give this amazing dramatic performance. They'd say cut, then go back to telling the funny story. Like there's a looseness, and that's
Yeah.
why I think that's why if there's my favorite actor, it's Jack Lemmon, because he made it look easy, but he would have been the first to tell you that it wasn't. It takes years, it takes good directors, it takes great actors. Um, I'm a firm believer in my performance comes from the other actor. If you and I are doing a scene, I want both of us to be, to be good. I want both of us to be great, because it's like if I go on into the scene and I'm like, okay, well he's not good. I'm just going to steal the scene from him. That's exactly the wrong kind of attitude to have, because it just it's just the wrong attitude to have, because you have to be giving. You have to be giving. It's give and take, because you need that other actor. You need the cinematographer. You need the sound person. You need all of those people. Again, comes back to ensemble, ensemble, and just yeah, and love what you do, love it, and know that yeah. Again, you're going to have hits and misses, but the positives always outweigh the negatives, and you learn from all of these things. Everything that I've done is there's a lesson that I've learned from it,
Right.
and that's a great thing to walk away with.
Good man. Where can the people find you? We got about a minute till this
Yeah, I'm on
video runs out.
Instagram. I'm on the Facebook, Timothy J. Cox, and IMDb. That's I think I more or less use that as my website these days. It's pretty much the most updated information. But yeah, no, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, not Twitter or X or whatever. I don't even know what it's called anymore. Like X, Twitter, or triple Twitter. I don't know, but no, definitely Instagram under Timothy J. Cox for both Instagram and Facebook.
Good man. Tim, I appreciate it. Always, I wish we had more time. You're always welcome on. And we will get more time soon. Soon. I appreciate you, man.
Sounds good, my man, and I appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, yeah. I'll talk to you soon. I'll DM you here really soon.
Have a good night, my friend.